All right, everybody, we've got the DBA review. I am working on starting with question number 21 and 22. So flip to the middle of your packet. And this video is going to be 21 to 30. And there's going to be another video for 31 through the end, which is question number 40, okay? First of all, let's see, what is the surface area for the sphere? So let's make sure that on our piece of paper that we're going to use as a cheat sheet, we have the formulas down for surface area. Surface area of an entire sphere, this is an entire ball, not a hemisphere, so be careful about that because we do know both formulas, is 4 pi r squared. So I know that the radius goes from the center to the outside. That is the definition of a radius. Remember, if we're given the distance from one side of the sphere all the way to the other, then we're going to cut it in half. But this already is half, so I'm just going to use the 9 as the radius, okay? So I'm going to put 4 pi 9 squared. And how do I actually type that into the calculator? What I'm going to do is 9 times 9, because that's the 9 squared. I'm going to start with that. You always start with the exponent. And then I'm also going to multiply by 4. And it's 324 pi. But the directions do say to use 3.14 for pi, so I'm actually going to multiply my 324 times 3.14. So I still have that in my calculator, and I'm going to hit times 3.14, and I'm going to get 1017.36. Be careful on this multiple choice exam. I don't think there's going to be pi in that answer if the directions say to use 3.14, so your answer should be a decimal, okay? For volume of a sphere, I have another formula. It's 4 pi r cubed divided by 3, and double check, triple check, make sure that you have a 3 there, which is different from the 2 that's in the surface area formula. But again, I'm still taking the 9, which is the radius, and I'm plugging it in right here. So I'm going to put 4 pi 9 cubed divided by 3. How do I type this thing into the calculator? I'm going to start by 9 times 9 times 9, that's 9 cubed. And then I'm going to multiply by 4, because I've already done the 9 cubed. I'm going to times 4 divide 3. So I'm going to do times 4 divide 3, enter. And so what we wrote on our test was 972 pi. But since the directions tell us to use 3.14 for pi, I'm going to do times 3.14. And that gives me 3052.08 as my answer. Okay. Now let's say I've got a surface area for a pyramid. So you are going to look on your cheat sheet where you're having all your formulas, and you're going to find surface area of a pyramid, and it's going to say B plus PL over 2. So first I need to figure out what the base is. So the base is a square, this thing down here, with a side length of 32 all the way around. So to figure out how much that carpet is, this is 32, this is 32, this back side is 32, and this side is 32. Let me explain what the 20 is. The 20 is the slant height, and that's what we're going to use for the L. And the 12 is the actual height, which is what you would use if you were doing the volume, okay? So to figure out the base, what I'm going to do is I'm going to write big B up here. So I have a little bit more room. That's 32 times 32. It's just a square down there. So I'm taking 32 and multiplying by 32. And that's going to be a big number, which is 1024. And I also need to figure out what P is. So I'll figure out P also. P is 32 plus 32 plus 32 plus 32. There are 4 sides in that square. And it gives you 128, FYI. So what do I do now? Now the hard part is over. I'm plugging in the big B right here, which is 1024. And I'm taking my 128, which is my P, and I'm plugging it in right there. The L that I need, as I already said, is this 20. It's the slant height. That's why it's an L. And then don't forget to divide it by 2. So let me plug in all my numbers. The big B is 1024. The big P was 128. The L is this number, which is the 20. And then divide by 2. And that gives me 1024 plus 1280. 1024 plus 1280 is 2304. Boom. Okay. Oh boy, what about the volume of the pyramid? So we have a different formula there. It is V equals big B times H divided by 3. And I'm pretty sure we still have the big B. It's right up here. It's still a square, and it's still 1024. So I'm going to plug that in. But what am I supposed to use for the height? The height is not the L. Be careful about that, because the height is the actual straight up and down height of the pyramid, which you can see this arrow right here is pointing to, which is 12. And don't forget to divide by 3. How do I type it in my calculator? 1024 times 12, divide 3, enter. 4096. Boom. Okay, great. Ooh, a cylinder. Okay, this cylinder looks like it has been knocked over and therefore it is rolling around, but you have to make sure that you understand the difference between the radius of the cylinder, which is this. Remember, it starts at the middle and goes to the outside. That is the radius. That's what we're going to use for R. The height, you'd have to turn this thing right side up so it's not rolling around again, but the height of the can or the can of soup or the soda or whatever it is 20. You have a formula for surface area of a cylinder, and it looks like this. 2 pi r squared, 2 pi rh. You got to make sure that you are using the 4 for the radius. Okay? Be very careful. The 20 is the height. So we're going to plug all those in, and we're going to combine our like terms. Plugging in 4 for the radius, the height is 20. How am I going to type this in the calculator? 4 squared is not 8. Be careful. It's 4 times 4, which is 16. Don't forget to multiply by 2, which is 32 pi for the first part. And then what do we do for the second part? 2 and 4 and 20 all get multiplied together, which is 160. Whoops, 160 pi. And therefore, when I add those together, 160 and 32 is 192 pi. And I'm assuming we're still using 3.14 for pi. So let's not leave our answer like 192 pi. I'm going to actually multiply that by 3.14, which is going to be 602.88 done. Let's look at number 26 and 27, surface area. So here's something that when it's printed like this, it's a little bit weird, but if it's hard for you to tell what the base is, you can actually like draw it and color it in like so. This is the bottom of the Kleenex box or the aquarium or whatever it is that you are thinking about. And yeah, this side right here is part of the base of the rectangle, and that side is the same as this length, which is a 3. Okay, so if it's easier for you, you can draw the 3 here. How tall is this thing? It's the same here, it's the same here, it's a 5. So now I've labeled my entire rectangle. You do have enough information, but you have to use your like 3D awareness to be able to figure out where all the numbers go and what they all are. Okay, surface area of the prism, you have a formula for that. It looks like this, 2b plus ph. I'm going to do B over here, and I'm going to do P over here. The base is just a rectangle. One of the sides is 10, and one of the sides is 3. And how much carpeting goes in this room? How much paint do you need to paint the floor? 10 times 3 is 30. If you're wondering, why aren't we dividing that by 3? That's because or dividing it by 2. Don't we do sometimes dividing by 2? That's when you have a triangle down here. This is a rectangle. You just do 10 times 3. The perimeter, so there's a 10, there's a 3, there's another 10, and there's another 3. So I'm going to add up all of those. 10 plus 3 plus 10 plus 3, which gives you 26. Okay, so now hard part's done. The big B is 30, that goes here. The P is 26, that goes here. Pretty sure you know what the height of this box is. It's 5. It's the only number we haven't used yet. Okay, so I'm going to plug all those numbers in. The big B was 30. The perimeter was 26. The height was 5. When I do 2 times 30, I get 60. What is 26 times 5? I wonder. 130. And therefore, when I add those together, I get 190. What is the volume of the prism? Volume of a prism is just big B times H. And yes, we already have the big B right here. It's 30. And we already know what the height is. We already put that here for height. It's the same exact number here, which is going to be a 5. So all I'm doing is I'm taking my big B, which is 30, and I'm multiplying by the height, which is 5, and that gives me 150. There's no pi in this because there's no pi anywhere in any of our formulas, and there's no circle up here, which is why there's no pi there. 28, I think a lot of us were getting a little bit confused on 28 when you are given the volume of the cone and you're given the radius and you have to find the height, so we don't know what the height is. I'm going to start by writing the formula for the volume of a cone. You can look that up on your sheet and it looks like this. Pi r squared h divided by 3. And I know that we know the radius, it's 5, so I'm going to put a 5 right there. We also know the volume of the cone. The V is this number, so I'm going to put 50 pi. The radius was 5. I don't know the height, so I'm going to leave the h in my formula, and it's still divided by 3. So now I've plugged in everything I know. The 50 was the volume, so I plugged it in there with the pi. The radius was 5. I plugged it in right there. It says find the height, so I'm leaving h in my formula. And then don't forget the divide by 3, which is part of the formula. So what do we do to solve this? We practiced this a bunch of times, but to refresh your memory, the pi's are gone on each side, so that is fantastic. And algebra, you guys, what is the opposite of divide by 3? I need to multiply by 3 on both sides. I'm going to write times 3 here, and I'm going to write times 3 here. Here's where most of us were getting screwed up. Times 3 and divide by 3 cancel. You can cross that out. We're not multiplying the 5 squared by the 3. That's canceled. That's gone. Here, we multiply. 3 times 150, or 3 times 50 is 150. What do I have left over here? I just have 5 squared and h. Well, I know that 5 squared is 25, and I still have the h. Now this is super simple. I need to solve for h. Opposite of multiply is divide. We're not subtracting there, we're dividing. And when you divide this, you get 6 equals h. If you want to copy that example down on your piece of paper, that would be fantastic. How much popcorn can fit inside each of these 3 shapes? I love popcorn, especially at a movie theater. This is a prism. So I know that the volume is big B times h. It's a rectangular prism. We have a rectangle down here, and the base is 6 and 5. So in order to find the base, I'm going to do 6 times 5, which is 30. That goes in for big B. How tall is that bag of popcorn? It's 12. Okay, great. That is the height. And when you multiply that, you get 360. Okay, let's do this one is a cylinder. What you have to be careful about the cylinder here is that they gave us the diameter from one side to the next. I need to know the radius, which is going to be a 3. Cross that out, we have to use the 3 in the formula. So the volume of the cylinder is pi r squared h. I'm going to plug in 3 for the radius. How tall is that cylinder box of popcorn or cylinder bag of popcorn? It is 12. How do I type that in the calculator? I'm going to do 3 squared, which is 3 times 3, and I'm going to times by 12, and I get 108 pi. And if I use 3.14 for pi, I get 339.12. Which one of these would I rather have? It seems like more popcorn can fit in this one than this one because the volume of this one is bigger. Let's check and see the hemisphere and see how that one compares. It looks also like we are given from one side of the hemisphere all the way to the other one. So I'm going to cross that out and cut the 11 in half, and yeah, it gives us 5.5, and don't freak out because it's a decimal. We can still work with that. This is a hemisphere. Look that up on your formula sheet. It's not a complete sphere, it's a bowl, which is like a circle cut in half, right? Okay, so I'm going to use the volume of the hemisphere formula, which is 2 pi r cubed divided by 3. Be careful about that formula. The radius I'm plugging in is 5.5, and don't forget to raise it to the 3rd power. How do I do that in the calculator? I'm going to do 5.5 times 5.5 times 5.5. That's how to do the 5.5 to the 3rd. Then I'm going to multiply by 2 and divide by 3. Times 2, divide 3, enter. And I get 110 0.916 pi. And again, it's probably going to say multiply by 3.14 for pi, which gives us 348.2. I'll round it to 2 decimal places. Which one would you rather have? I would rather have this one. It is the biggest amount of popcorn because this number is bigger than this one and this one. Love it. Now I've got one left. This volume shape is a cylinder. And, which means add, this is a cone. Okay, so I'm going to do the cylinder first. Pi r squared h. The radius. Be very careful because here this is the diameter all the way across. We need to cut it in half so that we know the radius, which is going to be 7 and 7. Plug in 7. Remember, the radius is the center of the circle to the outside. The 22 here is the height. This is a cylinder that is rolling around. It is on its side, and we need to visually be able to turn it right up so that it looks like a soda can or a soup can. The height is the 22. So I'm going to plug in the 7 for the radius and the 22. And how do I get that? I'm going to do 7 times 7 times 22, and that gives me 1078 pi. That's for the cylinder, okay? I have ignored the cone, which is right here. I have only focused on the cylinder. Now it's time to do the cone, and we have a cone formula. Its volume equals pi r squared h divided by 3. Here's something weird. We do not know what the radius is, do we? I bet we can look over here because isn't it the same circle? Okay, so it looks like from here to here is 7, so I'm also going to label that right there as a 7. Okay, use the picture because it's the same. The cone and the cylinder are stuck together. And the height of the cone, how deep is it? How much ice cream can fit in that straight up and down? The height is 6. So I'm plugging in 7 for the radius, 6 for the height. Don't forget to divide by 3. And when I crunch that number, I do 7 times 7 times 6, divide 3. I get 98 pi. And so when I take the cylinder and the cone and add them together, here's the cylinder, here's the cone. When I add, because it's the two shapes stuck together, I get 1078 pi plus, what was the other number? 98 pi. I get 1176 pi. Or if it wanted a decimal, you just multiply by 3.14 and get 3692.64. Those are the same answer, but if your answer choices have a pi in it, choose this one. If it's a decimal that's been rounded, choose this one, okay? Thanks for watching. I'm going to do another video for 31 through the end. Love you guys.